Okay guys, let's continue in this code, and in our continuation of this code there are just a few highlights point that I want us to look at before we can go to something else. It is very important that from this code we learned a few things. We can see that inheritance works only in one direction. A child can inherit from a parent, and a parent cannot inherit from a child. It works only in one direction. A child inherits from the parent, not the other way around. Very important. If a program instantiates an employee object, which is the superclass or the base class that we have, as we have done here, just as we have done here, right? This program instantiates an employee object, that is fine, and the employee object does not have access to the commission employee property or method. Now let's check if this is true. What we can do, we can come here, let's instantiate another object of the employee, and let me just say the employee, let's call this employee, and this is equal to new employee. All right, and what I want to do, we are saying that the employee object, which is this object in this case, this object does not have access to the commission employee properties or methods. What is it that I have inside of commission employee? I have a property here, which is commission rate, and it is public, right? Well, this is the question. Will the employee, the object of this employee class, be able to have access to the method inside here, which we call commission rate? Let's go and check, just to show you that inheritance only works in one way. When I say employee, which is this one, and I press the dot, I have access to the employee number because it is inside of the employee. This property is defined inside of the employee, and I also have the access to the property employee salary because it was defined inside of the employee class. Let's go down and check. I don't have any access to the commission rate, to the property that was defined inside of the commission class. I don't have access to that. So this is one way of showing that inheritance only works in one way. The child can inherit from the parent, but the parent cannot inherit the properties and the methods that belongs to the child. Only a one-way situation. It's very important that we also note that. Now, once we have noted that and you have understood, I have assumed that you have understood, let's carry on with the theory behind this implementation of object-oriented programming. Right, so the point that we are trying to make here is that the employee object does not have access to the commission employee properties and methods, irrespective that they are public. It will never and ever have access to that because inheritance is a one-way direction. You can only, as a child, inherit from the parent, but the parent cannot inherit the methods and the properties that belongs to the child. Very important. You will need this in your second year and your third year object-oriented programming. Very important when we deal with the applications. This is of a pivotal role that you understand, right? However, what we want to do, irrespective of the conditions that we have saw, now when I, for example, go and say the employee, and I give this the object the employee, just as we have done. Okay, let me just backtrack a little bit so that we can have some notes in place. So we have created an employee object. We have called this the employee. That's fine. And I know that when I try to access the commission rate, this will be impossible, right? Employee is the parent class. We know that it is the base class. It is the super class that we have. And the employee, this one, it's an object of the parent class. This is true. This is the object of this parent class. All right. It makes sense that the parent class object does not have access to its child's data and methods. How is it making sense? We will find out. When you create a parent class, you do not know how many future child classes might be created. This is true because I don't know, because you are not a prophet. You can never and ever know how many children you will have as the base class. So you are the mother. You never and ever know as a mother how many children you will have in the future. We never and ever know that. But we can argue that because some can say, I want to have 2 children, and then after that they will close the tubes and everything. This is in the human life, it's a possibility. You can know how many children you want to have. So we can argue on that one. But in the context of object-oriented programming, you can never and ever know how many descendants that represent you in the inherited gene pool you will have. You will never know that. In the context of programming, you cannot know that. So we are saying when you create the parent class, you do not know how many future child classes you might create, or what their data or methods might look like. This is true. Even in the world of the human beings, you can never know the character traits of your children. It is true that these children can inherit from the mother and the father, but remember, these children also have their own mindset. They have their own space where there's so much influence that comes from the outside. So you can never and ever know what methods and properties these children, the attributes of your children. But you can tell when looking at your child that this child has some attributes that belongs to the father. The father can be able to notice this, and the mother can see the characteristics that are transferred through the gene pool to the child. But we can never and ever know all the properties and the methods that the child will possess, even in human beings. This is impossible. Okay, that is fine. In addition, child classes are more specific. They are very more specific. As we can see here, the commission employee is a child class, and it is very specific that, okay, I have one field. This is the specificity that is noted here. I have one field, and this will be of type double, and it will be a private. So the child is very specific. I just have to have one field, and this field will be private. This is the commission rate. Very important. Now, let's continue in this. Right. Now, the employee class that we have on the screen, its data fields are private. We have made the data fields in here private. These are the fields. Let's go to the fields. We have made the 2 fields private: employee number and salary. They are private. And we have the properties and methods that are public because we want to access the private member outside of this class. That is why we have the methods and the properties that are public. Right. Now, we also learned this why it is important to have this information hiding, so that anybody that accesses the class outside of this namespace will be able to manipulate data the way in which we want to control it. This is the purpose and the whole aim of information hiding. So protecting your data from the alteration by method outside of the data's own class. That is why we have these conditions. When a program in a client of the employee class, that is, it instantiates an employee object, the client cannot alter the data in any private field directly. We have saw that when the field is private, you cannot have direct access to that. You have to create properties and methods that can be able to manipulate things the way in which you want. Right, that is fine. We have saw that nothing is mysterious about this. Right. When you use information hiding, you are assured that your data will be altered only by the properties and the methods you chose, and only in the ways that you can control. This is exactly what we are going to do. If outside classes could alter an employee's private field, then the field could be assigned values that the employee class could not control, because any value can be set if you did not make your field private. Because I can have access to this field outside of the class where it was defined, and I can manipulate it in any way that I want. All right. So we are therefore saying the employee class could not control that if you make that field public. In such a case, the principle of information hiding will be destroyed because your data is exposed. There is no hiding principle that has taken place. Anybody can do as he wishes, causing the behavior of the object to be unpredictable. It will be very much unpredictable. Okay, that is fine. So on some occasions, you do not want to access the parent class data from a child class. This could be one occasion. So suppose that the employee class, the employee salary property set accessor has been written so that the employee salary is ever set to the value that is less than 15,000. So let's go and do that. Let's go to the employee, the base class, and inside of the base class, we want anybody that can inherit from this class to manipulate the employee salary in a way in which we want. And which way is that? We can come here to the set accessor of the employee salary. Our interest is on the salary, please. So we can come here. Okay, let me just say end employee salary and property. All right, let's just end this property here. Now let's go to the set and inside of the set, let me do it in this way so that you can see it clearly. When I am inside of the set, I want to create some restrictions that will allow salary to be manipulated the way in which I want. So the first thing that I'm going to do now, I'm going to declare a double, and this double will be a minimum, and the minimum value I will attach to this is a 15,000. all right, we are fine. And then I want to run a check statement. I want to say if the value that you set to this property, if the value that you set is less than the minimum value, what is it that I want to transpire? I want the employee salary, the private member to be equals to this minimum value. If that minimum value is what now? If that minimum value is less, if the value that you set is less than 15,000, this is the condition that I'm trying to create. Now, if that is not true, the else part, if that is not true, then what is it that I want? I want the employee salary, the private member, to be equals to the value that is assigned. So what am I saying, guys? I am saying to you, in this restricted area, this is what we call the restricted area where the conditions are met. I'm saying to you, I am declaring a variable of type double, and the name is a minimum. The minimum amount of money that is instantiated for that is 15,000, right? And then what am I saying? I'm saying if the value that you are setting is less than 15,000, then take the private member and assign that value to it. So we are taking the minimum value. If that minimum value is less than 15,000, which you have set via the property, and we assign that to a private member. Very important. If that is not true, if the value that you have assigned is not less than 15,000, then any value that you set, take that value and assign it to the private member. This is exactly what Makeba is saying. Now let's see if the conditions of Makeba will be met. Let's run the code and check something. Let's just wait for the compiler to finish up, and then we can see what really transpires here. Okay, it is compiling. Let's just give it some time before it can run. It has to load up, check the processor, the RAM and everything, and all is good. Jesus, all is good. Now check what is happening here, because the value that we have set is a value that is not less than 15,000. Then I said assign that value. If that value is not less, then it's fine. What I said here, I said it's fine, take that value. If that value is not less than 15,000, take that value and assign it to the property, and the property will assign that to the private member. Now let me use a value that is less than 15,000. Now let me just come here and I say 15,000. Are we fine? Very good. In fact, less. Let's use a value like 13,000. All right, let's now run our code. Let's run the code and check. Right, let's check. The salary is 150. What value did I set here? Employee, the value, okay, the value is 13. I've set the value as 13,000, and this value, okay, let's come here and check. So I have hello employee number, that's fine, and the salary is 150,000, and here we have 200 million. So let's go to the employee class and check something. Guys, I'm sorry, I wanted to say 15,000. Sorry. Okay, let's run the value and check. I'm sorry, I have made a mistake. Let me just close this and rerun the code. I wanted to say 15,000. Right. And we have said now, okay, if that value, remember, it's less, so the value it's not less than 15,000. Let me just make the value, so if the value is less than 15,000, so let me assign a value here. The value is 13,000, and I know that this value, the employee salary, it's a value that is less. So let me just go to the employee class. Let me get rid of this clerk. It's 13, salesperson, that's that. Okay, let's run just to check what is happening. Right, let's go to the class here and try to understand what is happening in the condition. We are saying now we have a double which is minimum and the value it's 15,000. That's fine. We are saying if the value that you set, that value which you have set, we have set a value of 13,000. If that value is less than minimum, which is true, then it will take the minimum now, which is 15,000, and assign that to the private member. That's exactly what it has done here, because the value that I have set was less than 15,000. It took the value and assigned that to the minimum. It took the value and assigned it to the private member, because the value was less than 15,000. It was 13,000, so 13,000 is less than 15,000, so it will take the minimum, which is a value of 15,000, and assign that to the employee salary. And then we are saying else if the employee salary, this is what we are saying, if it is not less but greater, it will take that value that you have assigned and assign that value to the salary. Let's check if that is true. Let's go here. Now the value that we have set, suppose that value is greater than 15,000, or it is 15,000, because 15,000 is not less than 15,000. Suppose the value is 15,000. If that value is exactly 15,000, let's go and check whether it will assign the value of 15,000 to that. Let's run the code. Right, and there it is. Things are running fine. Now if you check here, only this condition is met in the object of the employee class, but everything remains the same in the object of the salesperson, which is the commission employee class. There were no changes made. So the changes that I make in this class are not affecting the changes that everything that should happen inside of the salesperson. Why? Because in the commission employee class, remember, this is the child class, and in this child class, did I set any restrictions as to the get and set? No. So what will happen when you come here? You are in the salesperson class and you have assigned a value of employee salary to be 200 million. So that 200 million will be printed. It will not, whatever the restriction that you set inside of the employee class does not affect what happens in a salesperson class. This is one most important thing that we just have to learn. And then now, be that as it may, assuming that we have understood what is happening here, now I want us to modify things a little bit. Let's go to the employee class in here. And what I want us to do now, because I do not have access to this private member, remember I don't have access to that when I am in a different class, and we have saw that I can come here, sorry, I can come here in this, and suppose that I want to have access because this is a child class. I want to have access to a few things. Now when I am here, let me go to program and show you what is happening. I am here and I want to go to the object of the commission employee, which is salesperson, and I want to use the dot. Even though inside of the commission employee I don't have salary and I don't have employee number, but I have access to them, to the properties, because they are private. And I want to have access to the private member, which we call the employee salary, when I am inside of this object. Now how do I do that? Now we have to look for something else. And which something else is this? Now we are going to use what we call the protected access modifier. So what does the protected access modifier really do? Right, let's just read a few theory lines that might give us an understanding as to what is happening here. A protected data field. This is a data field, it's a member. But this member, instead of saying it is private, we are using the access modifier protected. So this member of a class is protected. So a protected data field or a protected method can be used within its own class. So we can use the protected member in its class. We can use the protected member in its method, a protected method in its class. This is one most important thing. Or it can be used in any class that extends from that class. So if I have a protected member in the base class and a child class inherits from the base class, then therefore the protected member can also be used. So it can be used by the parent and the gene pool that inherits from that. Very important stuff. Okay, so a protected data field or method can be used within its own class or in any classes that extend from that class. But it cannot be used by outside classes. It cannot be used by the class that does not inherit from the mother. So you cannot use a protected member if you did not inherit from the parent. Only the descendants can be able to use the protected member and the protected method, if there is any method that is defined in the parent which the gene pool wants to have access to that. So this is very important, right? But it cannot be used by outside classes. In other words, protected members can be used within the family. So if you are not a family member, unfortunately you cannot have the privileges that comes with that, right? So it can be used by within the family by a class and its descendants, right? Let us go and write such a code and see if there is a possibility of writing such a code, and we will investigate if what we have read in a theory statement does apply in the practical application. So we will go inside of the employee, because the employee is the parent, is the base, is the super class where everything should be extended from. So instead of saying this member, I'm only interested in the employee salary. I'm not going to modify the employee number. I am just only interested in the private field, which is the employee salary. So I change the access modifier, and now the employee salary is no longer private but now protected. And using the access modifier protected, I know that everyone who is a member of the family that will inherit from the superclass will have access to the protected data field, which is the employee salary. One most important thing that which is worthy of noting, and I'm going to leave everything as it is. Even the restrictions here will be the way in which they should be. Even the method that I have, I'm just going to leave that method as a public method. Everything will just remain the same as it is, and we will have those gets and set. They will also remain the way in which they are. Now, inside, I want to go to the commission employee now, because I know that the commission employee class inherit from the employee, so it is a member of the family. And what I want to do when I get there, I still have a private double, which is commission rate. I still have a public property, the get and the set accessors for me. And in the set accessor here, I still have the commission rate that is equals to the value that you will set. But once that value has been set, I want to say employee salary. And now look what is happening. I now have access to the protected member employee salary. Where is that? That is inside of the employee. There it is. Because it is protected, I have access to that. Where? In the commission employee. There it is. And I want to say, in the set block, once you have taken the value of whatever the value will set for the commission rate, and you have assigned that to the commission rate, I want you to go back and make the salary, the employee salary, inside of this class. When the object is created, go and initialize the value of the salary back to 0. Guys, this is very important. This is beyond the stratospheres themselves. Very, very important. Let's check whether this condition will be true. Now here we are in the main method, and inside of fuck, let me just make a pause. I will come back. Right, let's continue with this. I'm very sorry, the phone just went off. So let us try to run our code and see, and then that will bring us to the end of our lecture for today. And I will then see you in the next tutorial, should things happen the way in which we want. Let's see whether this is true. Right, what is it that I'm doing here? Let's check. I have employee number, it's this, employee salary is that, and then I have this value. Right, that's fine. So what have I done here? Now the condition was met just as we did inside of the employee. The value was less than 15,000, so it assigned the value of 15,000 for that. We have employee number 234, and then once it has printed the employee number, check what we said. Let's go to commission employee. I said once you have set the commission number, right, take the employee value and set it back to 0. And which field is this? Is the protected field, and it was set to 0. Now let's go to the main. Inside the main, I am saying when you create a salesperson object, check what is happening. And now you print the employee salary. I have assigned a value of 200 million there, and there is no restriction that I have set as to what value should be acceptable here. but it has printed a value of 0. Why? Because of this condition. You have set the employee value is equals to 0, so it doesn't matter what you do in here. It will not take, look, what is this? This is the employee property. It is the property that assigns the protected member to this value. So because you are not calling via the property, you are calling via the protected member, that's why we have a 0. But if we do this, if we come here and we say employee salary dot, and let's check, do I have access to the protected member in the main? No, you cannot manipulate that. You don't have direct access to that. The only access to that is via a property, and because it is not a property that was assigned a value, I'm calling a property here. And what will the property do? The property does the following. Because it is defined inside of the base class, the property will go to this protected member and assign that value. But because I did not call via I have called via the property here, that is true, but during the assignment the property is supposed to take the value. There is no condition in here, right? So I am saying in here, based on the property on this class, it has to do what now? It has to take the value and assign it to the protected member. But because I am now inside of the commission class, I am overriding this. When you assign the value, it's true inside of the employee class, it has assigned a value to that. It has. So what I'm saying is, it has assigned a value of this to the employee salary inside of this object. But now, when you came to this class, you overrided that assignment value. You overrided this value, so it will not assign that value. Because you have overrided that value, it will assign a value of 0. And when you go to the main, you run this code, it will print a 0 value for you. So this is all what I wanted us to look at, and I will see you in the next tutorial.